Stations, and this week the topic of discussion is e-citizen. We're not doing it alone though. We're doing it with Victor Kapio, who's an advocate of the High Court. 1 second. 1 second. Victor Kapio. Victor Kapio is an advocate of the High Court, trustee at the Kenya ICT Action Network, or KICTANET, a partner at Lomac Partner LLP. He's not doing this alone either. We have Muraya Kamau, who's a tech entrepreneur, CEO of Deviant Limited, a subsidiary of JumboPay. He's also a JumboPay and Deviant Limited is a tech company that automates workflows, automated the Nairobi eGG Pay platform for parking and business permits, and other 127 services in the Nairobi County government. Although that contract ended, Mr. Muraya is here to shed light on how e-citizen works, how payment platforms should work nationally and at the county level. We leverage his expertise in the tech space, his entrepreneurship and innovation around payment systems, and we also point out the technical loopholes inside e-citizen, the platform that has been at the headlines of all news over the past 1 week because of a very, very bad audit report from the Auditor General in this country. It's not the first one. And Mr. Kapio will be here to shed light on the legal side of things, leveraging his legal expertise and his board membership at KICTANET, which also oversees privacy laws and other tech-related issues in the country. As always, I'm not doing this alone. I'm doing it with Justine Wana, who's a satirist, comedian, stand-up comedian to be specific, and also the host of Fake Walk with Justine, which airs on her Facebook. You're on Facebook, Justine?
What? Why would
You're
you
not that
insult
old,
me
but
like
you
this?
are at the same time. Justine does it on TikTok. She does it on every platform, including Instagram, and also where you're watching us on YouTube. Justine?
Hi, everyone. I hope your week was good. I hope they did not build an expressway in front of your house, but I hope everyone is doing well.
Yeah. Hopefully, because so many things have been happening in the country. Before we set this show off, guys, 2 things happened. One, Far Show from Kenya, and the other one, Harambee Stars won yesterday. Anyone attended the match?
Kupata tickets?
No, but I watched the entire game.
Mono kwenda study.
KPC.
So I want to go with my sons. So and I don't want the late games. Yesterday I missed it, but it was the early games. You want to go for a 3 p.m., 4 p.m. one.
Yeah.
So at the end of the you go. But we are waiting and seeing because people are jumping the barricades, and you don't want to go with. Yeah, it's a safety issue. If they make it tighter, I think it's a good thing to attend. Yeah.
Up here?
Yeah, we're supporting in spirit.
Why not there?
I might want to change careers. I mean, if looking at the level of motivation that players are getting, I mean, I wouldn't mind making $1 million every day.
Cash is good, isn't it?
Cash is
so we support them anyway.
Have you even tried getting tickets, both of you? Like actual tickets to go to the stadium?
Like going to the CAF website and
No, I tried the first time, but wasn't possible. So, yeah, we'll see.
And
I haven't, but towards the end, the semis, that's when the stakes are high. Those games are unmissable.
But what if we don't make it to the semis?
At this level of incentive, the incentives put in front of these players, there's no way we are not gonna go to at least the semis. Yeah. It's not just about skill anymore. It's 1 million now, 2.5. It's crazy. Yeah. So everybody is putting it on the line.
So if you go, actually, you might be putting your life on the line, because I don't know if you saw the video that Larry Madowo posted, but there seemed to be a stampede.
Yes.
Which is a big problem, because now they've even had to pull tickets from sale for the next Kenya-Zambia game.
Yeah.
That's a whole other issue, Justine.
I think I would just put this question to Mariah. When you're building a website where people are buying tickets, what could be the cause for someone not being able to buy a ticket automatically as an individual? Is there a way to stop people from bulk buying so that the website doesn't indicate, because I think today morning a friend of mine was trying to buy a ticket and it kept telling him like Kenya is not even a location anymore. It just shows Uganda and Tanzania, but like Kenya has been removed from the log and everything. And I'm wondering, is that a tech issue? Is that oh, the system has crashed because so many people are trying to buy, or did someone find a way to lock out all the Kenyans who are trying to buy tickets?
So I think that's not even a technical issue. Maybe it's a policy issue. If they're trying to reduce the number of, or they're trying to control who buys the tickets, then it would be prudent to tell the, or what they've done is basically told this ticket provider to limit the sale of tickets for certain venues. When this happens, you'll find users complaining online, they're not able to get tickets. I can give you maybe a very brief inside workings of a ticketing platform. So you want to make a certain amount of money for an event. So you will release a certain number of early bird tickets, maybe peg them at 500. So on the 500 early bird ticket, it's sold out, and on the website it will say sold out. And then the next level of tickets, if you have 3 waves, you'll allocate depending on how much money you're budgeting. Now you're looking at a scenario where we have around 45,000 seats at Kasarani, and the ticket is the same price. So unless genuinely there are 43,000 people who bought, which I hear some tickets were allocated to certain people so that they trickled them down to their supporters so that we don't have chants in the stadium, then that makes a lot of sense on why you're not able to just access a ticket. But then you go online and you'll see someone saying, I have 500 tickets, DM, you know it's a problem.
And Justine, I know you have a lot of skepticism regarding this, but we need to move on to e-Citizen. But before we get to e-Citizen, far ashore from Kenya, there is something tragic that happened. In Palestine, over 180 journalists have been killed since the war started in 2023. And yesterday, 5 journalists were murdered outside Al-Shifa Hospital in a tent for media people, honestly. Over 180 journalists killed and 5 more names added to that list. The 5 are Anas Al-Sharif, Mohammed Kereike, Ibrahim Zahir, Mohammed Nofal, and Mohamed Aliwa. These 5 were just journalists shedding light on what's happening in Gaza, which is, to be frank, a genocide. And they were murdered for doing their job. Today on this show, we mourn them. And all the other journalists who are doing the gallant job of shining a light on what's happening in Gaza and pointing their cameras to these crimes against humanity that happen every day. To move on, gentlemen and lady, e-Citizen, biggest problem in the country right now for a specific reason. Muraya, over 22,000 government services automated since 2023 and thrown onto e-Citizen. So no cash transaction at Huduma centers. When you need a license, you pay and you see it reflect on your phone. But at the same time, well, this has made a lot of things easier. It's made so many things come out to the glare of the public. To be specific, corruption. The audit report comes out last week and billions of cash have been transacted between accounts, some of them not even included in the contract, but benefiting from this platform that is meant to be serving Kenyans, but is now stealing from Kenyans. Before we get to the fraud side of it, first of all, what was this platform briefly meant to solve? What problem was it solving?
e-Citizen was a very good idea. I think initially the World Bank was trying to pilot something. They got these guys called webmasters, asked them to build a workflow automation platform for a couple of services to see if maybe Kenya is ready to adopt a digital kind of lifestyle. It was a brief pilot that went very well. If you're aware, Kenyan internet penetration is really high. Kenyans love convenience. We are very active on social media, on Twitter. So we have a lot of early adopters in Kenya. So this was the service was a hit. If I can get my driving license online, renew it in a very short time, that's a plus. I would rather go that way. Same for the passport and all the other services added. So it started as a pilot, and now it has grown to what it is today. It's a huge platform. We make more than 22,000 services we pay through that platform. So
before I pass it to Justine, who has questions, Kapio, you work with KICTANET. You also have a lot of knowledge on how the law works. E-Citizen, briefly, is it legal, first of all? Does it operate within the confines of the law in the country? That size says it all.
Yeah. I mean, legal can have different interpretations. But I think it's a service. Government offers services. They are offering the same services through paper. They put in a few computers. Now you can do it through computers. So are the services being offered by legitimate government entities? Yes. But the issue is just that the nature of the service and the manner in which it's being offered, that it's such an important service that needs a legal framework to be able to operate properly. What you have are legal notices, which would be, you can think of them as administrative in nature. Yet, e-Citizen is such a critical infrastructure, or digital public infrastructure, that cannot just be left to administrative whims. We have seen, for example, there have been so many from a pilot moving over to a few legal notices, and this changes. There's no institutional structure, there's no legal structure that now allows the entities that are actually managing the platform to do so effectively in a way that respects the Constitution and the rule of law. So any government services must be offered by an entity that is known to law. So right now it's being offered. You have Treasury is holding one arm, Minister of ICT is somewhere there. There's a private provider there, and then there are so many other people doing different things. So it is hard to hold. Who do you hold responsible when something goes wrong? And you see, that's the crisis, I think, where we are at now, that people are questioning. So who do we hold? Is it Treasury? Is it the service provider? And all of them are pointing hands. Treasury is saying we've not lost money. The other ones are saying we don't have the money. These ones are saying, but we have a contract. So that blame game stops when there is a clear legal framework which allocates responsibilities to a relevant institution and outlines the functions in a very clear manner. And then you have a proper governance framework. There are officials, there is oversight, and so on. But the way which is currently run, you can ask any Kenyan who is based in Loitoktok, show me the offices of a citizen, and they can't tell you. And that's a problem. Who do you hold accountable if that legal framework is not there? So while you can run the service administratively as a pilot, the thing is that the governance risk is so high for such a critical platform to be left without any framework that governs its operations.
So personally, I did research on e-Citizen. I think, is it like a year ago, like a year and a half ago? And what for ministries? Who does what is up in entities? Each of them has a specific role, but they're also just allowed to like dismantle the system according to the contractual obligations that they have. If there's a fallout, if there's anything, they can just be like, si tumeenda. And there's nothing that the government can do to stop them from that, because that's what the contract says. So my question first will go to you, like, so if you're building a system for Kenyans, right? How do you build a system that is people first and also has accountability in it, right? Like, how do we build a system that has accountability at its core, that has integrity, not just it can withstand corrupt leaders or anyone who's trying to siphon from the system, but it in itself is, like, it can withstand that, so that the baseline is not that, oh, we can have corruption and people can nini, but it's the baseline is this system is safe regardless of who tries to interfere with it. And then my other question to you would be, what, like, the legal loopholes that we have already, like, we have the accountability issue, but also I'm pretty sure there's other entities in the legal system that we probably, the ministry that's in charge. What
of Estonia's e-government effort started back in 2001, where they started automating their services, and right now they've automated up to 99% of government services. There are only 3 things you cannot do in Estonia through the digital platform: getting married, getting a divorce, and doing a real estate transaction. Those are the only 3 things, services that you need to show up somewhere at least. So, and they've done this gradually over the years, leveraging on the technologies that are emerging and what the people have. So before you launch a web platform, you need to understand how many of your people or how many of your users can access a web platform. Before you launch a USSD service, you know, at least I have 20 million users who have at least a feature phone, they can access a certain service. The challenge that we have with our technology is that due to the amount of data that eCitizen collects, you might not be able to provide it to the basic level of technology. So the web browser or the app have been the standard. Excludes a lot of people, but maybe that's the standard where we feel we can capture the bigger segment of the market. The automation in itself, which webmasters do, is go to an MDA or a certain department. They seek to understand the workflow currently as provided in the manual way, and then they make that workflow automated on the web. And then they're able to push it on the platform, they add the payment bit, and they're able to collect. So those are the mechanics. The mechanics of that automation, the 2 most important things in government system is, number 1, to the bare minimum, there is a bill presentment and there is a bill settlement. On the eCitizen platform, you must have raised a bill and you must pay for that bill. So you want a passport, you have to make the application, you select the attributes of that application to raise a bill, and then you have to make a payment against that bill. So the MDA that owns this service has an invoice that you raised as a bill, and will wait for that settlement to be done so that that service can be done. So you see how difficult it is for me to hear that there is some money that is missing, because it should be auditable. All the invoices that have been raised by Kenyans trying to pay for certain services, and all the monies collected, minus the invoices that were unpaid. Maybe someone got to that area and they were not able to pay. And then maybe it said 100 shillings and you pay 99. So that ideally is a flaw that does not allow you to get the service. But that money should be held somewhere in a suspense account. So it's very difficult for me to understand how money gets lost. Where are these invoices? The ones that were raised, the ones that were settled, and the difference. the ones that were not settled. Should be very easy to get around.
And to trace and to point out, right?
Exactly.
So legally, if it's very easy to trace, how do we make sure that there are no, or we build a system that flags any kind of legal loopholes, even if we have okay, the Ministry of Interior is in charge or the Ministry of ICT is in charge. How do we make sure they're not taking advantage of citizens? And also, as it stands now, what are the biggest issues with this system from a legal standpoint? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think there are a number of things from a legal perspective. Number one, I think we know that corruption is a problem in the country, and integrity, not everybody has the right level, the ideal Chapter 6 level of integrity as required under the Constitution. So, part of what e-Citizen was solving were those loopholes in government accessing money, because people were paying bribes to access government services. But now e-Citizen had addressed that by enabling government to have a way of collecting that revenue. Now we are seeing, yes, the revenue is being collected, but it might not be going to where it's supposed to be, because also digitization or digitalization amplifies the good, and also it amplifies the bad. So if we were having small corruption, it has only amplified it. Now it's much bigger. If we were having good services in some places, it has now amplified it. Now you have 22,000 services. So we are able to have those. If there were issues around governance, it has now amplified them. Now people are saying this is not just a small thing that you can address administratively. We need a proper mechanism for how to address it, and that has been the question over the years. If it is a question of how do you deal with suppliers, then how do you address vendor lock-in? We have seen that, okay, this thing is too critical. Should we continue running it the way it is? So those are loopholes around issues around data. Yeah. As you increase the services, it means that you're collecting more data and transacting people's data, their bank account details, their mobile numbers, and so on. So how do you safeguard those issues? There was a cyber attack on e-Citizen platform, the DDoS, and the question, okay, so how do you have all this data, all this money coming through the system, and how do you safeguard it from those risks? So issues around hosting and so on. So the loopholes are many, but I think one is, you have to start from a design thinking perspective, like how are you building it and what are you trying to solve? Because you find that there are different perspectives over what it's supposed to do. From where I sit, I think it's supposed to be making government services accessible. But if I'm a businessman, I have to look at it from my perspective that I want to make as much money as I want. As a government, then you have to be able to balance those interests and say, we want to make government services accessible at the least cost possible to do the work. If you're digitizing, then it means that you've been able to cut down a lot of the costs. But people shouldn't pay more for things which should be becoming cheaper because of digitization. You're not printing papers, you've transferred some of the cost to the citizens. So firstly, I know as a lawyer, sometimes we say you start with the tool that you have first. So, if you meet a carpenter, they will start with a saw. If you meet a mechanic, they will start with a spanner. As we start with the law and say, okay, how can the law address it? And one of the ways is putting in place that governance framework first. Establishing the structures and the institutions that are important, and then putting in place the processes in terms of what needs to be done and by who, like a responsibility framework, and also put in place the guardrails, that what are those checks and balances that must be put, whether it's in terms of who should host this service, who should run it, and even from a financial perspective, we have, of course, the Public Finance Management Act. To what extent that law addresses how public finances are being managed in the digital payment space, so that then whether it's a county or whether it's national government that is implementing any digital service, that those aspects are regulated through a proper framework that has been properly developed and benchmarked with global standards. So part of the things I think that Treasury introduced, like they want to phase introduces a treasury single account, meaning that when government collects money, all of it goes to a government account and not a service provider who is now the person collecting and then deciding how much, because it goes to a wallet like your M-Pesa wallet, and then you can decide, do I withdraw it to my own number or do I withdraw it to the bank? So putting those guardrails then become important, especially for a government entity, given the number of transactions. The other thing is also cost. How much, if you're doing a public-private partnership, currently in Kenya we have a PPP law, 2021, but you find that eCitizen, for example, has been deployed through a service level agreement or a contract, which is not a proper PPP structured as the law anticipated. So addressing that and saying that if you want to do a PPP model, then we need to go through what the PPP Act says and then follow that structure and have a proper public-private partnership. And if you're doing it to government only, then the government also needs to hire all these developers and IT people and use cons and say we're going to put the data center there, we're going to buy the cloud server and implement and have those techies, because there are many young Kenyans who are going through these smart programs for training. So have a channel where all these guys who are learning all these skills can go and be those system admins to be able to run the system, so that then you're not doing a PPP. But you have to figure out which model are you using, and query and assess the model for its risks, and then plug those risks. Another aspect is privacy and cybersecurity. How are you addressing the privacy risks? Doing like a data protection impact assessment because of the large volume of data, and also the cybersecurity. So implementing privacy by design, cybersecurity by design, and also ethics by design, because we know that is an area where we have gaps. So addressing,
that's a thorny issue, which leads to my next question to Moriah, because he's spoken about integrity and Chapter 6 being respected. As you've mentioned rightfully, there are so many laws like the PFM Act, procurement and asset disposal. There are also big questions regarding how eCitizen became the sole provider of this service for the government. It wasn't competitively done, single-sourced. So many questions. These transactions, the Public Finance Management Act says that everything should be done transparently. What we are seeing is the exact opposite of that. Blatant thievery of public resources, which prompts me to ask this question. I don't think you're a tech evangelist. I don't think you believe tech can solve all the problems in the world. But are we throwing money at an integrity issue?
Good question. Well, technology cannot solve everything. We had a corruption problem before eCitizen. We still have a corruption problem today. We just put a blanket on it called technology, but we did not maybe address the pertinent issues on integrity in the beginning, and probably that's why. So if in an MDA we used to lose 1 billion shillings a year, because it was a manual process, I'm 100% sure once you add technology and the service is accessible to more millions of Kenyans, so we are collecting more, so the corruption looks bigger because it's more money that has been brought into access.
There's so much opacity regarding these contracts. No one knows what the contract stipulates. We only know the surcharges and how much eCitizen takes away as a convenience fee. That's how we interact with them. But you've signed contracts to Deviant with Nairobi County Government, Uasin Gishu, Bomet, and numerous other counties. How do those contracts look like? What's written in them?
So all those contracts are signed by our mother company. And usually they're very open. So there are two ways organizations like us make money. We charge a fee, called a setup fee. And then we also have an AMC, or an annual maintenance contract. So let's say we charge you $1 million shillings to give you a system, just for sake of breaking it down. Charge you $1 million shillings, we give you this system. Annually, you'll pay us between 15 to 18% for support and maintenance, ongoing. You know, technology is always changing. Things happen, things break. So you need your tech guy to be there to make sure that you're running smoothly. So that 18% usually covers. So that's the first model. The second model is, we'll give you this system at a minimal cost. Maybe we'll not charge you anything. You'll buy the servers, we'll put in the system. You will pay for any hard costs that we will incur to give you this system. But we don't charge you for this system. But every transaction that you do, give us 3, 4, 5, 6%. Usually, I think it's capped at around 7%. This, it's a revenue share model where everybody incurs the costs of making this happen. And then once we start collecting, there's a little bit of revenue that we receive, and that's how we make our money. So those contracts are usually either in the first, my first explanation, or the second one. And they're usually public. I think currently you can always request for such documents in your county and be able to get them. Surprisingly, we have not seen the e-citizen contracts. We've seen the page where we have 6 signatures, but the last page of a contract, we don't even know what.
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
As I said before, we still have a problem in terms of accountability, because this system, I think every year, the audit report that comes out is usually very adverse. So if we want to make Kenyans comfortable, someone needs to come in and say, okay, all these things have happened. How do we go back, or how do we correct the mistakes that have been made so that everything is clear? If it means the government buying the rights for this platform, these guys have done a good job. Yes, pay them off, let them let the government own the platform. We start from there. We stop pointing fingers every time there is an issue that it's these guys, it's this ministry. Then have that framework where is it ICT that is in charge? If it is ICT, then the buck will stop with the Minister of ICT. But right now, the framework has left a lot to be desired. So we have different people. There's a payment provider, there's a work automation provider, there are 3 ministries, and a couple of other people, so many companies that are doing one thing or the other. That needs to be looked at.
Okay, so I think both of you are in agreement that the framework is messed up.
Yes.
This leads me to my next question. So if money can be unaccounted for, join ancestors or wherever it is it's going, if that money can just be stolen and disappears or cannot be accounted for, what about data privacy and protections? Earlier you told me that the way when you made EGG, the Data Protection Act was not in place, but now that it is, are the contracts you've done after, when they fall under that particular law, how is data handled? And also, how do we make sure that the thing that is happening with the money that's going to eCitizen is not the thing that's also happening with data, where it can just be sold off, where it can, oh, we had all this data and then it disappeared and we don't know what happened, or a cyber security issue arises and all that data is erased, or it's bought by a third party and then it starts appearing in other places in the world. Like, how do we make sure that the data also doesn't fall where the money has gone? Yeah.
So there's best practice around this. Currently, as the setup of eCitizen, we have what we call a centralized architecture. That's why we're basically sitting ducks. We have a platform that collects Kenyans' data that is somewhere held centrally. If you look at best practice and the people who are doing e-government well, the data is decentralized. So this means that all MDAs hold their data within the infrastructure. It's actually a very nice, if you look at some of the visualizations of this, it shows that if you need a service or if a private company needs Muraya's or Justine's information, they make a request. So it looks like a web going in and a web coming out. So we don't have a single database that is holding all this data. The reason why you do this is to make sure that in case there is a breach, your risk exposure is as minimal as possible. Because if, for example, what happened, I think last year, we had an attack, yeah? If this actor, or foreign actor or internal actor is successful, then they will have so much of this data out there, and you never know what they're able to do with this information. So it's very important for us to look at best practice. There are new technologies coming up. Other countries are trying to do blockchain. It's easier to trace each and every transaction. It's easier to be accountable for each and every transaction on the platform. It makes it, it gives it a level of checks and balance that anyone can go and see what kind of transactions are going into the platform. Maybe that's the direction we need to go.
Maybe my last question would go to Victor on how, like, why do Kenyans like scammers? And why do they build these systems that support burglary? Because I feel like that's how we are moving. It feels like the people who have the knowledge, the tech knowledge, have an idea, right? But also legality has to be built in that idea. But also there's a middleman who's like doing kati with who gets to do what and who gets to protect what. But like the general idea is Kenyans love scammers. Like why is this? And like how do we protect ourselves legally? If do we have to sue someone? Me, I'm ready. Me, I'm always ready. Mnite vitatokea. Yeah.
No, I think, well, I don't have a clear answer to it, but one, I think poverty is the enemy because everybody's trying to cover the bag or secure it. So if you're able to have equal opportunities for progress for all the young people who are in school, that there are incentives to the business environment so that they can create jobs, and these people who are coming into the workforce can find opportunities and government services or development is equal across various parts of the country, so people don't feel excluded and that they need to catch up with the Joneses, that you're seeing what's happening on socials, and you need to also go for that holiday. Like if opportunities were available, then you're able to address that high demand for get-rich-quick schemes, because that's something that happens because people feel they're being left behind. We have to look at our values again, because yes, we've legislated the values, but we don't live it. Kenyans are very God-fearing, but we thank God for the new Mercedes, but nobody asks where did the money come from.
Choppers.
Yes.
Yeah, we clap for choppers, but we don't ask where the money is coming from. So we must also introspect and also look at our collective conscience, that some of these things must shock a nation to do different or to be different. You'll find that many individuals, they will also want to be in that chopper and also get that path. So we also need to look at how we're modeling roles, which examples are we following. For the young kids who are growing up, who are they looking up to? Are they looking up to the guys who are doing wash and they have dollars and they're splashing it, or they actually are real examples of entrepreneurs who are building businesses from the ground up, or doing their own thing and working hard in their own way and getting their own money legit, not through shortcuts. So then we amplify those people, so that then we go back to that value system in terms of merit and promotions, so that people believe that the society is fair. But so long as the society remains unfair and opportunities remain skewed, then you'll always have this competition that doesn't help grow the country. So it's something we need to think about. Otherwise, we'll continue to have this, technology-assisted yes, corruption. And I think very soon we'll also be plugging in corruption with AI-assisted.
Yes.
So that the technology is good, and I think these platforms are groundbreaking. They can really change our lives and change our society, but we must build them correctly. We must build them with the right values, build in the ethics also within, so that then those ones can't be compromised. Because technology is only as good as the weakest link, and we know that the weakest link is the human.
Yeah. And we know who the human is in this whole interaction.
This is it.
Yes. So I'm looking at this entire system. Looks great. Everything looks to be in the open, but it isn't. It seems to me like what we did was take all the money from Huduma Center counter workers. So this distributed corruption, and then we monopolized it and made it accessible to very few people. That's why these transactions are coming to light. So it doesn't really solve the problem. It just monopolizes the benefits. I'll ask you the same question, Kapio. You see these things from your perspective, through your work at Kiktanet and also through your legal profession. I'll ask you the same question I asked Muraya. Are we throwing money at an integrity problem? Same thing we're seeing with SHA. Hundreds of billions thrown at this thing, which is still inefficient. And the Ministry of Health is also coming after journalists for simply reporting that this thing isn't working, which is what the word on the street is. Are we throwing money consistently, the Kenyan government, at problems that should be addressed by simply following the law?
Well, I think it starts with the government not having a very clear strategy for how it wants to deliver digital services. And it's not just the national government, it's also county governments, because all county governments are also coming up with all manner of platforms. Government ministries, departments, and agencies are also coming up with all manner of platforms to do all manner of things. And there's no coherence in terms of what they're supposed to achieve. Yes, e-citizen is one of the ways, but also it lacks that policy and legal grounding that then makes it ineffective. And as a result, you could see SHA also asking people, you need to come and register afresh. NSSF have their own platform, Carry have their iTax, and you see how people panic when it's almost June 30th because the system doesn't work when it's supposed to work, because people are last minute and things like that. I think is a big challenge because from a design thinking perspective, you have to first think about how do you want to deliver this, and then come up with a roadmap, and then say anybody who wants to build, then we need to align how we are building so that we standardize, we make sure that these systems are interoperable, So, for example, some counties you can't log in with eCitizen. They also have their own unique logins. So you're like, so why are we doing things in such a disjointed manner? Yet we are the Silicon Savannah. We should be demonstrating by example how we can do it better. And there are very many models. Our people are constantly going for benchmarking, but the outcomes of those benchmarking are not being seen. So we are spending more money on things which could be very simple problems if we just took some time to think through how it can work, because the evidence is there that these things work, but people don't want to take the time to put in place the correct strategy to get it done right. And also, like we said before, integrity issues. So people want to also build in within the system ways to profit. So government is paying multiple times for digital services, which it shouldn't pay. Some of these things shouldn't pay that much, whether it is IBC or yes.
There's an analogy used earlier where I think we were speaking to Mariah, like he was saying the convenience fee is supposed to the digital service because you need to pay a 50 shillings convenience fee. My friend and I, we call it an e-convenience. Like it's electronic fraud convenience, but like one of the things that you had pointed out earlier is like we're already paying for that service. So why isn't the 50 shillings built into that service? Why is it a separate charge? And I even asked you the legality of this and you said you're going to explain it. So before I let you explain, like you could give us the same analogy for why. Yeah.
I think first and foremost, we must understand that government services are rights. It is your right as a citizen to get access to a government service. It's not a convenience. So even the naming itself, in my view, is a misnomer from the get-go, because it's not a convenience, it's a service, we're already paying for it. So we have a loaded service, so we are paying for the service, you're paying for the passport and paying to access the service of the passport, which you've already paid for, right? And I think what you were saying earlier, you are in a hotel, you've bought a mandazi, and you're being paid to, you're paying extra to get the mandazi after paying for it. Yet you're already there. So we need to think through. Yes, we know that these things have a cost, and like we had said previously, before the digital system, there was a government officer who was offering that service. Yeah, that service has now been moved online. The computer is now offering the service. We are still paying for this officer, and we are still paying for the system. We have to make a choice. Do we have the system, or do we have this person? Can this person's role be changed so that now we only pay for the service? And of course, one of the things that the Auditor General mentioned is that government services, the cost of government services are usually legislated and gazetted. And so the passport has been gazetted. This is the cost of the passport. The convenience fee, the 50 bob, is not the cost it's supposed to be. That's why I think they said it was an illegality that you're charging people more for services contrary to the specified value. So it's something that we need to think about and even look at how government can absorb these costs, or they legislate the costs so that people know that they're actually paying for ABCD and not you're doing this, but you're not also getting the service as it should be.
Maybe this is where I would disagree a little bit from the point of view, or from a technology point of view. So yes, all government services are gazetted. Let's say, for example, your driving license renewal fee is 600 shillings. On eCitizen, the fee is still 600 shillings, but there is a convenience fee of 50 shillings. The initial spirit of these 50 shillings was because when the World Bank envisioned a digital platform for Kenyans with the Ministry of Treasury and all the people who sat in those initial meetings talking about this exercise, they say the thinking behind the convenience fee was that this service needed to be sustainable, so that there is no lack of budget, there's no day that the system will not be working because there was no allocation, there was a loophole, so it was supposed to pay for itself.
Yes.
And I'll even go further and say these services that are gazetted and maybe take some time. So we have a couple of services that probably are not instant. Driving license, you can in an instant renew and get it. A passport, right now it's around 3 weeks maybe, or 2 weeks,
21 days
or 21 days. So we do not have these KPIs or these ETAs somewhere.
Yeah.
If we had standard ETAs, we would even be able to maybe introduce what is it called? We can be able to introduce maybe an express service fee. These are ways the government can also raise money from. But you cannot introduce an express service without first of all having standard estimated times of arrival for these services. So if my passport has a 21-day timeline from when I upload my things and I pay, I have 21 days. But maybe I want to travel in 14. That person can be given an express service. They'll pay a little bit more on the convenience so that their application is looked at on a fast track, and then the service is issued. But all this have to be, again, put in law. But the spirit of the convenience fee is that these services would be provided in a certain timeline. There would be no looking for a budget to make sure that this thing is always online. The issue of adding more services should be catered for in this convenience fee, so that it is sustainable. Sustainability is the reason why we have it. Probably not the same reason we.
If I may, I think, that's a valid argument, and I think from where I see it, if we are automating government services, then they should work fast for everybody.
Yes.
It shouldn't be that there is preferential treatment, because that's the discrimination that we are trying to address, that these services should be available across the country and everybody should be able to access these services in the shortest time possible, because that's why we invest in the resources.
Yes.
If you have a cow that is giving you milk, the government has discovered that a citizen can produce milk. So what they should need to do is to give the cow enough grass, wash the cow, feed it, make sure that it's producing, and take care of the milk so that it gets to the table. And it's not, we have to think of everybody in the ecosystem and make sure that these services work for everybody. Other government agencies, you log on to iTax to pay taxes. There's no convenience fee for using iTax. There's no convenience fee for registering for NEMIS. There's no convenience fee for registering as a voter. There's no convenience fee for registering for SHA. Yet these are all government services. So why is it only that eCitizen is the one that must provide convenience? So we must also think of it from that perspective, that these costs should be, when they are saying a passport is 10,000, that 10,000 should cater for that cost of the convenience that they are allocating. And if there's a model, for example, private partnership, then it should be documented in a clear agreement that this service provider, these are the KPIs. They get this amount when they hit these targets, or when they deliver these services, or when the services uptime is this much, or X number of citizens access the services, if that is a model. Or they get this percentage for the amount of volume that they're bringing to the platform. But you see now, citizens are being charged twice. You're being charged for the service and also being charged for accessing the service, and we don't know the revenue sharing model that is currently in place. Yes. If people knew that the service provider gets a flat rate for this service, and this is the KPI of this is what they're supposed to do, so that they'd be telling us, in fact, even what you've gotten is eCitizen Lite. Where we want to do is eCitizen Pro, which has AI features and all this manner of features, can even do all manner of gymnastics. But we don't know the level of ambition that the service provider is expected to get to. Yes. So in terms of, from a value for money perspective, if someone tells you, you need to pay for this dress, they'll have to tell you, this is 100% cotton, or it is 90% polyester. It has been made by hand. Yeah. There's no machine that has used it. So we don't know those features. We just see the product and we don't know, is this the final? Is it the light, the alpha, the beta? Is it version 1, version 2? We don't know the ambition. So if they put in that policy and legislative, so that we understand, give us the terms of reference, be transparent about it. We know a lot in tech, people say, go fast, break things. Yes, they went fast, they broke things, they broke the law, they broke everything, they broke the finances. So now we are putting these pieces together. And people need to have an honest conversation. Let's not blame the technology because the technology is good, but let's think of how do we make it work for everybody in a way that it is fair and also builds the public trust, because you want people to trust the system. The business case is known, but the business model is what people have a problem with and how it's structured. So if the people are able to address that, I don't think anybody would have a problem with eCitizen working. Everybody wants it. Everybody believes in it. We want it to work, but we want also to work well, and we want it to work well for everybody, not just some people. We want to make sure that all those niggly points that it has are addressed. But so long as there's the level of opacity that you're seeing, let's just wait for the next corruption next year when the Auditor General comes up with the next report, because we don't know what they're going to find next, because we don't know even which institution to tell fix this. Yeah.
Good points. Before you continue, Muraya, I want to put something to you. The founder of Webmaster, which runs eCitizen, put out a very long post on LinkedIn. I'm not asking you to comment on his character, but some of the things that he pointed out were, first of all, that no money was stolen through eCitizen. And he argues that a few things are right in the Auditor General's report, and some of them are giving eCitizen a proper legal home. Those are the standard operating procedures and legal structures and legislation around it. 2, to take full ownership. I think he intends to sell to the government. This is obviously for selfish reasons, and also maybe he means well for the country. And 3rd, he says automate settlements. This is because there are so many things that still happen. As much as this is very digitized in its wording, there's still things that have to be done, and accounts and spreadsheets that have to be settled by people at Treasury. And then he says 4, fixed pricing. I think that's exactly what we've been speaking about. 50 shillings convenience fee for every transaction, even one that is 20 shillings. Doesn't make sense at all. Nowhere in the world does that make sense. And then setting up a real help desk, I think that's something that they should have done from the beginning. I don't even know why it's an issue now. And then cleaning up legacy integrations. Which things do you agree with here, and what would you do differently if you were to run eCitizen?
Remember, and maybe it ties to something that you said, why doesn't iTax have a convenience fee? Or so I'll go to the convenience fee first, because it's the most, I think it's a pain point Kenyans have. You're paying for a service for 50 shillings, your convenience fee is 50 bob. It feels like a rip-off, and it actually is. But iTax, NEMIS, and all these other standalone services do not have a convenience fee, because somewhere in the technology budget of KRA is a budget line for maintenance of that platform, whether they own it or it's vendor owned. Remember, I'll take you back to how eCitizen started. Very good and forward-thinking people sat somewhere. The World Bank was like, we can do a pilot. There was no ownership after the pilot was successful, and the government, so Treasury saw there's a lot of money. This is a way of making money for the government. No one thought about now that ownership angle, and that's why we're having this conversation. That's why he's talking about these things, because it was left open-ended for a very long time. We're maybe 10 years in, and now they want to correct this. So the first thing would be, I don't think it would be him setting the fees. The fees can be graduated based on the amount of money you are paying, or it should be a standard lower fee for every transaction. And the reason why maybe we still have that transaction fee and might not get out of it is because there is no budget line currently in any ministry that would support this platform. So I'm just thinking out loud. The SHA system cost 100 billion. So imagine if we go back and float a tender for eCitizen handling 22,000 services. How much do you think that tender would cost?
It shouldn't cost, actually, to be fair, the SHA system should not have cost over 100 billion.
Yes.
That's the problem.
I agree. Yeah. But they arrived there for one service. One service. We have 22,000 services. So I shudder to think about what is the possibility of us maybe moving away from this and setting up something else. This is the thing that we have. Is it working? Yes. Maybe 95% perfect in terms of service delivery. As long as the MDS support, you get your services very fast. What we need to be looking at is cleaning up the legal loopholes, cleaning up the technical issues in terms of maybe data, centralization, and all these things, security. Those are the things that we need to clean up. Those guys have demonstrated that they are technically able to provide this service. The government should take lead and see, are we buying them off? Do we want to own this IP? Continue licensing, but what is the framework? And then Kenyans can be looked in terms of public discourse on what is the best. Set up a committee of experts. What's the best way forward? We cannot keep burying our heads in the sand on this issue, because every year at around this time, we come back to this conversation. It's like we forget about who is eCitizen until this auditor's report, and then we're back here, who owns this, and it's a waste of time and resources. We can close these loopholes once and for all. Yeah.
Fun question, actually. Without disclosing, I actually am very confused about this. And this maybe is part of the problem. I did a transaction for 3,400 and something to pay off something on eCitizen, and my cost was 25 shillings. But then I'm hearing that it's 50 shillings. It's something that you can also notice in the Auditor General's report. And she says that the fee has constantly been shifting. And she particularly points out a particular date between 2020, I think February 2023, to some point in maybe March 2023 when the transaction was changed. The cost of the transaction was changed and this money was moved elsewhere. So I think that sums up everything that we've spoken about here. there's so many inconsistencies in who is going to give the service, who's supposed to do what.
First of all, I just think, Tom, like the government gave you a discount. That's crazy.
Kind of them.
That's crazy. And also, we need to know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
We go up, let us stop corruption and you're paying 25 shillings convenience. It sounds very sus.
Shady, right? Yeah. Maybe I'm part of the inner circle. I'm double agent.
Yeah, tricky, this guy.
But that said, Justine, Capio will come back to you if there's anything that has been left unsaid. But Justine, much ado about payment systems. A lot is also happening on the transport side of things. PPP agreements that are just coming to light today, and also some fatalities.
I'll say it's very strange that we're in a country where 6 to 8 road accidents happened in a week. And then we also had the medical air ambulance, the AMREF one that I think it fell and not only killed people in the neighborhood, but like everyone who was on board tragically died. That happened in Mwihoko. The Transport CS has been very silent on this, maybe because they're building an expressway to heaven. I don't know. Like, they have to tell us. Like, and the transport sector is also building 2 expressways, the one in Haile Selassie and on Kenyatta Avenue. They're like, oh, we're building something called a viaduct, where they get to use it to go faster because there's construction on the lower area. First of all, as a pedestrian, how dare you? Like, where is our viaduct? Do we also get to go up like those vehicles? Like, I'm very curious, because as a person who has walked the stretches of Nairobi, I feel extremely unsafe as a pedestrian. I have crossed roads with faith and the love of the Lord, and I have always gotten home, but at what cost? I have been traumatized by these roads, and so have many other pedestrians. And we are fighting for our lives between ditches and rainwater. The governor promised us a boat, and I think this problem exists mostly in Nairobi. I go to other counties and I'm walking and I'm safe and I'm crying because I know when I go back home, majaribu yatanipata. So I'm just like, if they could build a whole city, I feel like the transport ministry is they're even building another airport on top of, like, they're like, oh, we're just going to abandon JKIA or an orphan now, Jipange. They're building a whole other airport. If these people could, they would build a whole other city on top of this Nairobi, and they will call it Nairobi 2.0, and just leave the poors to die down there. And honestly, I am very concerned as a person who uses public transport, as a person who walks on this road. Like, we need transport systems that are not just built for the elite. We need transport systems that are not catering to people who have cars only. We need to think about pedestrian safety. We need to think about speeding, the excess passenger carrying. Like, our lives matter as much as someone with a V8. Tafadhali. We don't need to be dying. All this is avoidable. So if the Transport CS can abandon the PPP conference that he's in right now to just remember there's other road users, we'll really appreciate. Thank you.
I don't think they'll abandon that conference. It's been going on for the entire day. And it's very telling that this new airport is just coming up, Justine. I think it's news that we've just found out before coming on.
Speaking of like things that are being budgeted for, and I think this is also like taking another detour, we've seen that the government is compensating victims of any kind of state violence from 2017 all the way to 2025.
Yeah.
So, like, this government is just doing budgeted maiming now. Like, that's what you're doing. It's bad enough that Kenyans can show up to the streets and say, we do not want this thing because this is how it's going to affect us. You just have to listen. And also, if you're compensating victims, where does it end? Because it's not just the people that have been shot. It's people who've been abducted. Are there mental health services? Is SHA providing that for free? If we're thinking about the people, your friends have been traumatized, your family has lost a loved one. There's so many sectors of people's lives that have been affected. And if we're going to compensate one completely unavoidable circumstance, we have to compensate all of them. Otherwise, then that becomes discriminatory. I think there's a lawyer here that can back me up. So I'll say no system is going to be fixed by paying people off. It's just trying to buy out from the justice procedure, and it's pushing us to forget and to erase the memory of those of the Kenyans who have been harmed. And now justice has a price tag. you have just put a price tag on justice. Like if I give you 1 million, I never want you to speak about your dead loved one ever again. And I think that's completely unfair to those families. It's completely unfair to all Kenyans who've been traumatized by the events over the entire existence of this nation. We are not supposed to be like, nyamazeni tumwapea pesa. Like, that's crazy. I should be able to say what you did was wrong and you deserve to be in jail for harming Kenyans on something that was completely avoidable. So and we also saw the DIG speaking about mental health. Wacha tu ninyamaze, because so like what I'll call this is like budgeting the maiming of our soul as Kenyans. And I think this government is always trying to figure out a way to solve a problem with money, when sometimes all we need is justice. All we need is accountability. We've seen it with eCitizen, we've seen it with Chan, we've seen it with the transport sector. There's no sector that's money is not being thrown there when actual people's concerns are supposed to be sent.
Important then. I know this is far afield from exactly what brought you here to this discussion, but I'm curious to know.
I think what I'd say is that Kenyans have a toxic relationship with their government over the years. It's not starting yesterday. Successive governments from the colonial period have harmed Kenyans in different ways. And of course, that has left a sour taste in people's mouth in terms of, you're either getting arrested by the police or being shot at or being denied resources for schools, or, there are so many ways that government has harmed, or those in government have made decisions that have harmed people, and those are not being resolved over the years. So you have these successive years of inequality and pain. And if, for example, that the government has decided to compensate people, I think it's a good step in terms of showing remorse that, unaweza panguza hiyo machozi na 1,000. But the problem we have is that there are no guarantees of repetition, that there's no strong commitment to say that next year we want to aim to only have nobody being shot by a police officer. The principle of, in law we call it non-refoulement, like you promise not to do it again. So that is a commitment that we lack. Yes, you can compensate people, it is important, but then you're not also promising that injustice shall not happen again. So that's why we still have a big gap. And our human rights institutions, government policy is still not aligned with protecting the citizen as the #1 national resource of the country. So to the extent that they are still seen as objects that can be killed and shot and then compensated and then do it again every time, then we still not have addressed the problem.
Right.
I don't think I like the idea, but because some of these families are still grieving, some of these people are breadwinners, something towards something towards their families is welcome, although that puts a price on the life, which is an unfortunate thing. I think what we should do going forward, because I think we end up coming back here, government after government, is maybe we look at how our police are trained.
Yeah.
We start from there. There is a problem when it comes to maybe the training or the work environment. There is a very big issue to look at. If you look at the mask seller and what happened, nothing really justifies that kind of force. So either that guy had a bad morning and reacted, so it doesn't make any sense. So maybe we should look at from training to their living conditions. We humanize them. Body cams, I always think technology. So you're in the field, it's a protest or you are on duty. Body cams have really solved this kind of issues outside. Because when you know you don't have eyes on you, it means that you tend to go off script, and maybe those are the things we should look at. Yes, but for this compensation, how much is enough? How much? That's the question.
I think to sum up what everyone has said, Justine, is that it's not enough to give millions and billions to families of people you've killed. And I can imagine from Kianjokoma brothers to every single other person who's been killed when they shouldn't have even been arrested, to even say the least. It begs for better from the government. Throwing money, I feel like this is more a political process than it is a social justice process. It's the president and his cronies whitewashing their image, which has been tainted because of their actions. We can only see where this goes. Maybe this is just one of those many unfulfilled promises. Gentlemen, I'd like us to close on something that is also far afield from exactly what you're speaking about, which was e-Citizen and the compensation scheme. Kenya Pipeline Company has, it being a state-owned enterprise, started a process of putting up 65% actually, of its shares for sale at the Nairobi Stock Exchange or the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And this is meant to be part of the government's privatization agenda, in line with the Privatization Act, obviously. But 65%, they're equating it to 100 billion Kenya shillings worth of investment into these state-owned enterprises. According to the Treasury, it's that this is meant to relieve a lot of the budgetary weight from the government and pour it back into investors who are willing to pour money which can serve the interests of citizens. While doing this, it also means that Kenya Pipeline Corporation, which was very much implicated, its board, in a corruption scandal worth 550 million Kenya shillings earlier this year, with 16 people who were involved in the management and also the system that runs and operates around Kenya Pipeline Company. That case is still ongoing, but what this means is that it could remove a lot of the corruption and decentralize this power that these boards in these state-owned enterprises have. That's not the crux of why I'm mentioning this. It's that the government has given citizens, 45+ million Kenyans, just 7 days to respond and give their views on this divestiture of the Kenya Pipeline Company. And that deadline ends 2 days from now. Literally 2 days from now. So by Wednesday, the government will be closing its avenues for you to send your views. It's not the first time that we're seeing the government stifle public participation. And why are they doing this? My best guess is that no one trusts the government. There is a huge trust deficit, and the government is trying to stifle that. And this company that has been involved in petroleum, downstream and upstream for over 50 years, I think it started operating in 1978, so that means it's around 45 years plus in operation. But even that coming from the public to the private sector is something that Kenyans don't have access to. Just 7 days for you to submit your views on that. I think this is one of those things where we speak and say that hakuna kitu tunaweza do, bro, just submit your views for these 2 days before the email closes. But the government, as we have seen, is clearly intent on stopping you from seeing or even submitting your views and your opinions on what it does. Compensation, the PPP agreement that we've just seen that might be incoming to start another Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, something that nobody asked for. I imagine that should also maybe take 7 days for people to submit their views, but that can only be seen. So the public participation ends on Wednesday. You're probably seeing this on Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, or even now if you're watching live. Just go, yeah? Or on Friday, manze, kisha laps. So, bro, there's nothing you can do in that case. But that should mark the end of this episode of The Big Picture. Justine, asante for being such an awesome co-host. And there's a show coming up. I think you should plug.
Yes, I do have a show coming up this week. We do have the Nairobi International Comedy Festival. I will be performing. A host of other comedians around the continent and from across the world are going to be there. Buy your tickets at Stand Up Collective. There's a link there. Come through, let's laugh. Tunakufa but kuja tucheke.
I hope mtafunga platform kaza cha.
Na sika chan. Sisi sika chan. Trust.
But yeah.
Convenience.
Tickets are available. So just
yes, tickets are available at Stand Up Collective. Zikiisha tutawaambia in good time, usikuwa umelipia na umeibiwa. We would never do that to you.
Yeah. And Muraya, asante sana kwa kuja. Muraya Kamau, tech entrepreneur. Mr. Kapio, Victor Kapio, thank you so much for coming. You guys at KickTanet are doing a brilliant job. I hope you guys press more on this privacy thing because Kenyan's data were for once, I think the business registry system, the BRS system, up for sale on the darknet.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Crazy to imagine. And the same thing could happen to eCitizen, over 22,000 services. But that's all from us on this episode of The Big Picture. Huge shout outs to the team behind the cameras, the people that you don't see. But from us, see you next week. Cheers and have a good night.